Good morning, everybody. Welcome to day 2 of the Bible in a Year 2021. And today we're going to be reading through Genesis 4 to 7, Genesis chapter 4 to chapter 7. And I just want to apologize ahead of time if you hear anything in the background or any interruptions. Um, COVID, lockdown, and the children are not used to me stealing myself away for a little bit, but here we are. So yesterday we really looked at how we are where we are today. We looked at the consequences of that moment where um, Eve and Adam chose a different God for themselves. They chose to obey Satan instead of the Creator, and that caused all of humanity to enter into this broken relationship. It sounds like, okay, well, that's how it happens. So they went off and did their own thing. The problem is that it's the relationship with our Creator in the new age that we're in the age of the kingdom of God, in the age of Jesus Christ after the cross. We understand that Jesus is our life source, and we're not capable of doing anything without him. And that's where Adam and Eve were in the relationship with God. They were in a place of innocence. They didn't understand the difference between good and evil, and that's exactly how God wanted it to be. But now they have this awareness, and what tends to happen is because they now have this broken relationship with God, um, and they now understand the difference between good and evil. Their fallen nature, the fallen nature of humanity, will gravitate towards the evil. That is the nature that we are born with. That we gravitate towards rebellion, the things that are contrary to the nature of our Father. And so now in these chapters that we're going to read, Genesis 4 to 7, we're going to see the worsening of the condition of humanity as a result of this brokenness, this broken relationship that they have. So let's just get the slides going here. Sorry, just so many buttons, just trying to make sure everything's going here. So here's that thought that humanity thought it knew better than the Creator. And so we've gone off to do our own thing. And there's this cost to rebellion. It's a broken relationship. And we don't have that wholeness anymore. There is that yearning in us for something greater than ourselves, because we know that we are part of something and we're longing for that, but we don't know how to get back there. And that's what we're going to discover as we read through the Old Testament, the Hebrew scriptures, is that this is man trying to get back into that place with God. So unless there is restoration, it just goes from bad to worse. And you may understand that from your own personal relationships with people, that when you have a fallen out, if there is not reconciliation, if there is not a restoration, if there is not a seeking for forgiveness and a forgiveness given, you know that relationship is going to turn into a form of hatred, and it's going to be destructive, very destructive. So here we find in Genesis chapter 4, verses 3 to 5, that Cain and Abel, Abel and Cain, Abel's the older brother, they've been born to Adam and Eve, and there's a worship going on. They're worshiping the Creator. And so we read here in verses 3 to 5, sometime later, Cain presented an offering to the Lord from the land's crops, while Abel presented his flocks, oldest offspring, with their fat. The Lord looked favorably on Abel and his sacrifice but didn't look favorably on Cain and his sacrifice. Cain became very angry and looked resentful. That's the part right there. Let's just emphasize that. Cain became very angry and looked resentful. Again, we can go off in all kinds of different directions on this, but we're looking at the relationship. We're looking at what has happened and why God had to come up with a plan to restore us, to rescue us, or why he did. He didn't have to, but he chose to. And so we have this Cain became very angry and looked resentful because don't forget, there's a brokenness in Cain. So he's looking at his brother and he's seeing that his brother is acceptable to God, but he isn't. And so this anger and this resentment comes up. Now, here's what we got to understand. The fruit of this is going to be murder. We know that. You've read through it. You've known the story of Cain and Abel. You know that Cain is going to turn around and he's going to murder Abel. So the fruit is going to be the murder. The murder isn't the real problem. The root of it is the problem, and the root is there in the brokenness. And in that brokenness, there's anger and there's resentment. And if you flip ahead, if you go all the way to what Jesus taught, Jesus said, "You heard the ancients say, or you heard it from the ancients, do not murder." But I say to you, do not become angry with your brother. See, Jesus always went to the root of the matter, went right to the root. And that's why we needed him. That's why he came, to bring us to the heart of the matter, to deal with the cause, not to deal with the fruit, not to deal with the symptoms, but to actually deal with the illness of what's going on. So, okay, so we have this jealousy and resentment and this anger going on. But here the Lord, the Creator, turns to Cain and he says, he gives him this warning. He says, why are you angry? Okay, dealing with the anger again. And why do you look so resentful? If you do the right thing, won't you be accepted? But if you don't do the right thing, sin will be waiting at the door, ready to strike. It will entice you, but you must rule over it. So that's how it should be. That's how it should be. The way that we deal with sin, okay, this is after the cross. Understand, it's after the cross. How we deal with temptation, how we deal with these things is that we do the next right thing. That's what Eve should have done when she was enticed, when she was at that place. She should have done the next right thing. After Satan had planted those thoughts, she should have done the next right thing. The right thing would have been to walk away. The right thing would have been to lean into obedience with God. And that this is where we have to be, because we've been rescued from this. Okay, we're looking at how humanity became enslaved, but we're not looking at it from a perspective of being in that enslavement. We have been freed from that. We are no longer enslaved by that. We actually have choices. And the way that we make sure that we stay on the right path is by doing the next right thing. And that right thing isn't determined by us. It's not according to how we see right and wrong. It's according to Father. It's according to what he defines. It's according to his heart. And his heart says that we must be governed by love. And love would never hold on to anger. Love would never hold on to resentment. Love would desire the best for other people. And that's not where they are in this. And this is where humanity is. They're stuck in this. They're now enslaved in this. This is the consequence of abandoning God and putting Satan up as the one that you worship. And so sin now governs. He says you must rule over it. And that's why Jesus came, so that we could rule over it. But Canaan is in a situation where he can't rule over it. And so he kills. He murders his brother. And so the consequences is that God says, fine, you that's it. I'm done. You have to move out from my presence. The land will no longer produce for you. And Cain turns around in verses 13 to 14 and he says, Cain said to the Lord, my punishment is more than I can bear. It's more than I can bear. Now that you've driven me away from the fertile land and I'm hidden from your presence, I'm about to become a roving nomad on the earth, and anyone who finds me will kill me. So Cain feels that he's now this marked person. He has no favor of the Lord. He's not allowed to enter into the presence of the Lord. He is now cut off from the Lord. The land is no longer going to produce for him. He's got to find another way to make a living, to survive. But look at the grace. This is our Father's heart. I just want to point this out to you. This is our Father's heart. Cain deserves punishment. He deserves death. According to the law that will later come in with Moses, tooth for tooth, eye for eye, life for life. That's according to the law. Okay, according to the consequences. That's not what we live in now, but we're looking at a different time. We're looking before the age of grace. We're looking at after the cross. So, but look at, there's grace. You'll find grace all the way through the scriptures. And so we find here in verse 14 or 15 to 16, the Lord said to him, "It won't happen." That's what he says. He assures Cain, it won't happen. Anyone who kills Cain will be paid back 7 times. So that's a protection he puts over him. The Lord put a sign on Cain. I don't know what it is, but he put a sign on Cain so that no one who found him would assault him. Cain left the Lord's presence and he settled down in the land of Nod, east of Eden. So here we have this grace that is extended to him, which is just it's a should be a revelation for us. It's a foreshadowing. It's letting us know the Father's heart towards humanity. But in saying that, if we look at chapter 6, verse 5 to 6, we see that humanity, it's just rebellion has taken root, and it's growing. And so we read here, the Lord saw that humanity had become thoroughly evil on the earth, and that every idea their minds thought up was always completely evil. See, they had quickly reached this pinnacle of evil. And you're going to find this all the way through Scripture, that Father gives ample opportunity. He waits until the bucket is full. He waits until there's nothing wicked left undone. He waits until we've done everything wrong that we could possibly do before he takes action. He always holds out hope. He always desires more for us. He desires the best for us. But once we reach that place of no return, then he takes action. And that's what's happening here. The Lord saw that humanity had become thoroughly evil on the earth, and that every idea their minds thought up was always completely evil. Every idea, completely evil. The Lord regretted making human beings on the earth, and he was heartbroken. Ah, so this is what it's become to. And we can't say it was quickly. It wasn't overnight, because when you look at how long everybody lived, you can see it was thousands of years. Later, humanity has grown and multiplied and has become this ugly thing. And so again, in verses 11 to 12, in God's sight, I have to understand, righteousness is measured according to God, not what we think, but what he says. It's always measured by him. The humanity is looking around and they see nothing wrong with this. They're perfectly happy with this. They think this is great. They don't realize what has happened to them. So you can understand why the law came in later on. It was to reveal God's righteousness. It was to reveal where we had fallen short. It had to reveal sin, because right now humanity wasn't seeing anything wrong with us. But in God's sight, the earth had become corrupt. Not just, it wasn't just humanity, but it was all of creation had become corrupt. It was filled with violence. Everything was violent. All the animals were violent. Storms were violent. Everything was violent. God saw that the earth was corrupt because all creatures behaved corruptly on the earth. So this is where we had gotten to, in the brokenness, in the fall. So he wants to start over, and he finds that there's one person in his family, one person who isn't like everybody else. You see, the worship of the Creator had started, but they didn't know much other than He's the Creator, and they owed Him thanksgiving. That's about it. Worshiping Him didn't govern their behavior, but yet still inside of them, the, there was they were created in God's image. There was still that. There was still the knowing that was inside of them. You can't say that they didn't know that they were doing wrong. They just didn't care. They didn't care. But Noah did. Some translation says that he was the most righteous of that time. This translation talks about he was moral. His morality was good in comparison to his time. That's not saying he was perfect. That's not saying that he would stand up to what we would consider to be righteous today. But according to that time, he was the most righteous. He was the most moral. And so God chose him, and he just wants to do a reset. Things have gotten so bad, he just wants to do a reset. And it's not just humanity, but it's all of creation that he needs to do this reset for. And so he says to Noah, he gives this new covenant. He says, I will set up my covenant with you. So he's starting over again, and he's using Noah. I will set up my covenant with you. You will go into the ark together with your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives. So this is the reset. Now, this is how Noah stood apart. Noah did everything. In verse 22, Noah did everything exactly as God commanded him. So he was in contrast to his time. And then over in or chapter 7, verse 5, Noah did everything the Lord commanded him. Noah did everything the Lord commanded him. And we can ask why did Noah turn out this way and the others didn't? We can ask that about our families, can't we? Why have I decided to follow Jesus and my brothers and sisters didn't? Why do I believe and my parents didn't? Um, you know, my aunts and uncles, all this sort of stuff. Why am I following and none of the others? And it's simply because you decided to. You decided to believe. And that's what it comes down to. That's what Jesus said. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him will never perish. So this is what he's done. He set this up, and Noah responded to this. Noah responded to this, and we're invited. Um, we're invited into this place of faith. This is where we are. And Jesus said that we will obey him because we'll be empowered by love. And it comes down to that relationship. The relationship that was rejected in the garden, we've been invited to enter into again by Jesus. Jesus came and he gave that invitation. Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy burdened. And he was referring to the weight of the law where people were trying to earn their own salvation. He said, come to me, all you who are weary and heavy burdened, and I will give you rest. I will do the work. I will accomplish it for you. And that's what we've been invited into this place of rest, to set aside the rebellion, to forget the rebellion, and just come into this loving relationship, the fruit of which is obedience. Not bad for day 2, is it? So you can see where we are then, and what we're going to head into. And this is exciting. This is good stuff. You guys are doing well. Stick with it. Love you guys. Be blessed, and have a great day.